if we don't learn from COVID-19 to become more humane, more compassionate, more engaged with our nature, to understand our ecosystem of creation and destruction, then I don't think we are going to get another chance.
My name is Darshana, and this is Ethically Yours, a podcast to simplify sustainability. Joining me today on my very first episode is Bandana Tewari, lifestyle journalist, sustainability activist, and former editor-at-large with Vogue India. So, Bandana, thank you so much for taking the time and agreeing to be my guest on this very first episode. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and giving me this incredible opportunity to speak my mind mindfully, if I may say so.
Absolutely. So, before we get started talking about mindful consumption, and how we can foresee a shift in consumption, post COVID-19 or post this pandemic. I briefly wanted to understand, how did your sustainability journey began? 13 years with Vogue, and then the move to Bali. And what was your journey like? When did you, or how did you decide to take this path of being a sustainability activist or being a sustainability advocate?
My journey just changed over time. It wasn't something that I had envisioned for myself that, I would end up in Bali living in a jungle. But I think after 13 years of working in the fashion industry, I just felt a little disconcerted, uncomfortable, awkward, just personal emotions that came about when there was so much money in the business. And yet we were living in India. It didn't matter that you would sit in a fancy car and go to a fancy event. You still had to drive through gullies. You still had to deal with what we see every day in India, right?
Yeah.
Overt poverty, overt richness, you name it. So that started giving me a sense of angst and made me think that, how long is this going to continue? If I can convince someone to spend $20,000 on a watch, I wonder if I could, have encouraged someone to spend that sort of money for social good or for social impact. So these were all these thoughts that came up when I was working with Vogue, and they were not bad thoughts. They were just part of my own inner engineering and my own evolution. And so by the time I decided to come to Bali, which basically I followed my daughter, she goes to an incredible school called the Green School. It's a sustainable school. And I worked for Vogue for almost 2 years from here. But living in Bali, you're surrounded by nature. You are so beholden to the resources that are in front of you. You are so, anyone who lived here would see that you are intrinsically related to nature, and you are part of an ecosystem that you can't just consume and not give back. Mm-hmm. So those are things that I started living around, and I thought I need to put it in my professional practice. There is no way that I can continue to buy the way I did, or consume the way I did, or promote consumerism the way I did. I just had to make a very personal change in my life. This has no reflection on the gravity of my job, the goodness of my job, the incredible value I have for Condé Nast India that gave me all these opportunities. This was a personal journey. And so I started researching on personal responsibility, on mindful luxury, and then I chanced upon the ideals of Gandhian philosophy, and that just turned the corner for me. And I decided to resign and become a sustainability activist.
Wow, that really sounds incredible. I feel it's so important to find this individual journey and then decide to live sustainably. And this is one of the main reasons I've also wanted to do this podcast, to help people understand sustainability and find that reason for them to make the switch. Having said that, a lot of people, even my family, friends, colleagues, peers, they find it very difficult to understand this concept of sustainability. So, if you had to define sustainability in the simplest way, what would that sound like?
Mm-hmm. As far as sustainability as a term is concerned, I completely get it, that it's confusing. It's a massive umbrella word that seems to say everything about nothing. And no one can sort of figure out how it will work in their own lives, right? But if we change the word sustainability to responsibility, then we start understanding what is my responsibility as a human being. So as much as I'm a sustainability activist in the realm of the fashion world, when I start talking about responsibility, then it encapsulates every area of my life. Once you start thinking about what is my responsibility not to pollute the earth, then every time you buy a new toothpaste and you throw the old one, you've got to wonder where that tube goes. Every time you pick up a straw, it starts baffling you, because then you start worrying about or wondering, everything that I pick up has to be thrown away. And when we throw away something, the reality is there's no away in throwing. It doesn't disappear into thin air. It goes somewhere. So then you start thinking, okay, do I really need to buy that thing? Do I really need it? Because then you start wondering about, when I have to throw away, where does it go away? So for me, sustainability is an overarching way of life.
I agree. I think responsibility equals sustainability, totally. Yeah. And, we should all be more mindful and more responsible about every small or big thing that we choose to do, choose to buy, choose to use. But I have to say, amidst this entire lockdown, only essential services are on. And, people are not going out too much. They're not spending too much. They're not, giving into their wants very easily. So being resourceful in some way or the other. I think people are also at this particular time looking at need versus greed, which otherwise is not something that we think about a lot. There's a lot of impulse buying. So I just wanted to also get your perspective on, if you think that this sort of a more responsible behavior, or just this basic tuning of the mind to evaluate what you really want versus what you really need, do you think this sort of a thinking or a behavior pattern is going to become the new normal after we come out of this COVID-19 crisis?
I absolutely believe that we will be elevated, different human beings. We are going to be better versions of ourselves if and when we come out of COVID-19. The fact of the matter is, as we sit in our homes, we realize that what we really need to sustain our lives, real sustainability, is great relationships, good food, good air, resources that can be replenished and not degraded. And so in that, when you start thinking about that level of the fundamentals that you need in your life, then talking about a fancy luxury bag or shoes certainly takes a secondary stage. I'm certainly not assuming that things won't matter to us. We create things. We are creative human beings that will always create these amazing things that we want to have. But I think the idea that more and more, faster, not fewer, if we continue to think that is the fundamental driving points for our behaviors as human beings, then it is I would say it is a disgrace to be human beings on this earth to live like that. There is no way that we can think of our lives without owning things. Everything from a well-crafted crockery to a beautiful dress to a great book that's been written, a gift that's been shipped to you from somewhere. All of that will continue to exist. But the kind of excess that we had propagated and believed in so mindlessly, that I think will end. And if that doesn't end, I don't think we have a chance to survive as a species if there's another outbreak. If we don't learn from COVID-19 to become more humane, more compassionate, more engaged with our nature, to understand our ecosystem of creation and destruction, then I don't think we are going to get another chance.
There you go. One of the things I love about Bandana is her brutally honest attitude towards this problem. The fact that it is a real issue and it needs to be dealt with in the real sense. So humans, let's get our act together. High time. Anyway, a little off topic. Just out of this entire lockdown experience, my sister-in-law and I, we just had this thought. We are living in barely 3-4 sets of clothing right now, since we're at home, working from home, cooking, cleaning, everything happening in this limited space. And we are more or less in our pajamas or a couple of set of clothes. And, what we're wearing, how we are looking are literally the last things on our minds right now. But, when we have social commitments and we have to step out, this entire scenario seems to take a flip. And the only important question remains what to wear. And, that just made us wonder if we are only dressing up for the world around us and not for ourselves anymore. And, what does that tell us about our minds or our behavior or even our relationship with clothes?
Yes, so here we are sitting in one piece of garment through the day, right? And when COVID-19 is over and we have to go back and we have to entertain, we have to go to work, we've got to be mothers, we've got to be travelers, limited travelers rather, all of it, I think it's going to be a great reminder that we do not need 7 types of garments through the day to define us. So, you're at home wearing your comfy clothes, then you go to work, then you're wearing your work clothes, then you go to a cocktail party, you're wearing your cocktail party, then you go for a sit-down dinner, it's a sit-down dinner dress code. I think that's bloody bullshit. I'm not saying that you should not look lovely. I think you should look lovely when you're at home. You should look lovely when you are, and feel lovely when you are at work or play, whatever it is. But the idea that we as women especially have been peddled this notion that I have to be 7 types of women in the course of one day because I'm going to 7 different types of things proposed by the world of marketeers and advertisers or what have you, that I've been told that I'm not good enough to be in one set of garments that can carry me and my intellect through the day. That is hogwash. And we cannot subscribe to that notion anymore. It's regressive, it's redundant, it's not mindful, and it's wasteful. I want to believe that I can go to work in the same clothes that I can go to a party in, that I can be jazzy at work, I can be somber in a party, and vice versa. But to think that I have to keep changing my clothes, to change my persona as if I'm 7 different people, that is a fallacy, and that is a marketing tool that did great disservice, especially to women. So we cannot fall for it again and again. We are who we are. In essence, we are amazing people, and we love our clothes, and it gives us a sense of identity, sense of self-expression. We should enjoy it. But to be told that I have to look a certain part at a certain time of a day for a certain type of event over and over again, just so I can consume more and more, that is utter rubbish. and we are being had. And please, let's not believe that our world is going to be that again.
Yes, I mean, that's what I was coming to now. Do you think the marketers are going to start, looking at communication differently now? We're definitely expecting, brands to act more consciously and have the communication in place. I mean, I'm so done with looking at my Instagram feed and everybody's just shoving products down my feed. It's just shop now, sale. Do you think this is going to change? Are marketers even understanding the impact of what they're doing?
Well, if sustainability and mindful living becomes another trend, then we are in a disaster zone. Okay. And I will guarantee that there are going to be tons of brands that are going to ride this wave and propose ideals of sustainability when at heart they are not. A fast fashion brand cannot possibly talk about sustainability till they change the ruthless supply chains, till they change the way workers are being paid, underpaid. If the whole supply chain is not looked at by a certain brand, and without looking at that, if they talk about mindfulness in fashion, I think that is a marketing gimmick. And we as consumers have to be absolutely alert to this phenomenon, which will happen because the world is going to change. We are going to be more mindful. We are going to be talking about compassionate fashion. We are going to talk about conscious fashion, not conspicuous consumption. All of these are going to be beautiful words that are going to be bandied around by marketeers. But if at the heart of the business practice, these ideals don't hold true, then we should not buy their stuff. We should say, we do not adhere to your ideals, and we hold you responsible for a skewed system of production and manufacturing that makes people who are making our cheapest and cheapest of clothes invisible, unaccountable. And we, as consumers, we, the ones who had all the education, the privileges of buying and selling and what have you, if we are going to say no to these brands, it's about time all these big billion-dollar companies take complete accountability. This is not just a lip service that they can pay anymore. We've seen, we've come to our knees with COVID-19. And if this doesn't make us more humane, then nothing else will.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I wanted to touch upon this aspect as well, especially this entire lockdown in India specifically, I think it's the daily wage worker across industries, not just fashion, who's been impacted the most. Everybody from the government to people like me, everybody is suddenly realizing the impact of this on this daily worker, and the fact that there is a food and livelihood crisis for them. But when we talk about the fashion supply chain specifically, these are literally ongoing issues with or without this pandemic. Our factory workers, our artisans, our craftsmen are perpetually marginalized. So, how do we make this conversation, it could be between consumers or between producers, that drives real action, without a pandemic making us do so. It's a sorry state that something so huge has to make us realize these things.
Right. I think the crisis that we are facing right now with the manufacturing world, I mean, you see the crisis that's happening in Bangladesh, where billions of dollars of orders have been cancelled overnight, just goes to show how dysfunctional the supply chain is. That it works only for the powerful and the rich, and it does not work for those who are producing with their hands, with their time, their skills. They are not protected enough by governmental policies. They are not protected by corporate law, certainly not by the companies that hire them. They almost feel disposable, and that is unacceptable. So, look, I'm not the person I'm not a lawyer, so I can't get into the nitty-gritties of what the structures, or I'm not a policymaker either, who can get into the structures of what kind of performance would be equal, respectful, responsible. But even for a layperson like me, I see very clearly today that the manufacturing world in developing countries that produce almost 80% of the garments for the world they are on their knees because the entire system was skewed to benefit the richer countries, the developed countries. And so now it is for the governments to look into what kind of defunct policies were they adhering to that did not protect their own people, that did not protect their own ecosystems and their own economies. We did everything. All the developing countries that produce for the big brands in rich countries, we were not protected by the government or by the corporates. So this has made it's naked now. It's nakedly blatant that this is a system that cannot function anymore.
That's true. That's true. And, while policy, of course, makes a huge difference. But I think the other end of the spectrum is also, different ways of doing business, or, entrepreneurs who are coming up with innovative ideas. I remember seeing one of, your talks at Lakme Fashion Week back in 2014, sorry. Where you mentioned about disruptive thinking being the key for new businesses to survive and succeed. What I want to ask you is, in the times to come now, what sort of disruptive thinking should we be expecting from businesses of all scale and, entrepreneurs in the times to come that could possibly catalyze mindful consumption or, an innovation in the way we are producing?
Right. Well, as far as disruptive practices are concerned, I think a lot of them are already happening. There's research after research that shows that secondhand clothing market is going to become bigger than fast fashion companies very, very soon. Okay. That, rentals, exchanging, clothing swaps is happening more and more with millennials and post-millennials who love the idea of thrift shopping, and these are going to escalate beyond. But here's the thing: disruptive thinking it's time bound, right? There was a time when home delivering from, let's take Amazon as an example. Amazon, who delivers everything to us at our doorstep, that was supposed to be so disruptive. But there was a McKinsey report that came out about 2 years back, and it said, and it was done amongst like almost 40 nations, and it said that we no longer go shopping. We are shopping online all the time. Now, what does that mean? It sounds super disruptive, right? That you don't need a brick and mortar store to go to shop. It comes to your doorstep and you can order anything and it comes to you. But what this means, and which is hidden from the consumer's eyes, is that there's an excess of 34 million shipping containers that ferry across the world to deliver the stuff that we want, whether it's a box of nappies, to earbuds, to a dress, you name it. 34 million shipping containers. Each of them, average size is about 20 feet. So we are saying it's convenient. It comes to me. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm not driving a car to a departmental store to buy something. I don't even need to walk there. And, it just arrives and that's it. But the back end of the story is there are ships that are moving and creating such a huge carbon footprint because of our greed and our need for convenience. So disruption has to be taken with a pinch of salt. It may have worked at a time when we did not consider environmental issues, but today I do not buy online. I just do not buy online. Certainly not things. Today, with COVID-19, I have to buy certain things online. But for for t-shirts, for clothes. I just don't. Now, that's my personal point of view. Okay, but I do know that the environmental cost of our convenience is super high, and consumers need to be made aware of it.
Yeah, yeah. I think this entire concept of carbon footprint is also barely understood by people, and I have to do a separate episode on explaining what carbon footprint is. I think the understanding of environment or the environmental crisis, is not out there in the open. Now, people have slowed down on account of coronavirus as they can see clearly how fatal it is. But I don't think people are understanding that this environmental crisis is equally fatal and that it's only a slow death. Um, how can we really help people understand the gravitas of climate change and compel them to slow down as a permanent lifestyle change? Because it's like this is a virus and it causes me death, so I'm going to slow down. The environment, I don't see anything. People talk about this random figures about carbon footprint, but I don't think it's really making a difference in my life. So I'm just going to go on with my life. So how do we help people get this?
Well, I'm from the media, and in my opinion, media companies must be held accountable for disseminating this kind of information in a creative, non-threatening, engaging, and inspiring way. So here's what I think. Because I come from a magazine background, any magazine, a lifestyle magazine, they publish a magazine every month, correct? So you've got 12 magazines per year with special issues coming out and what have you. Do we need that much? And we don't. Can we have less of those magazines? And what is happening in those magazines? Can we change the storytelling? We have made the ideas of sustainability so fearful and so dogmatic and incomprehensible that when I say we, the media itself, every time they talk about sustainability, they change their language and become so uncool. The onus is on big media companies that own big magazines, websites, you name it, to make the practices of sustainability, the ideals of sustainability, digestible for the very consumers that they've been catering to. If magazines can tell you in copious numbers of pages how one handbag is crafted, there is no reason why they can't put their heart and their mind and their soul into making sustainability a mainstream topic. There is nothing that I don't know about a luxury brand today, from the way the lock is made to the way that it's sewn, the fabric and how it was done by ateliers in Paris, you name it. That storytelling has come from the very magazines that now need to use different languages of mindfulness, conscious consumption, and to educate a public that was already their loyal fans and followers to the ideals of sustainability. It cannot be that you have a publication that says, oh, the February issue is the green issue, and for the next 11 months they forget about it. Sustainability has to be mainstream, and it's the job of the media to make it digestible to their consumers. And it can be done. It's just that we've been so lazy because it's easier to peddle consumerism. It's very difficult to peddle frugality. But now, since with COVID-19, we are leading frugal lives, maybe there's going to be a sense of empathy and understanding that, yes, it is achievable. Consumers are already feeling it. Now the media need to thrive on this incredibly radiating goodness that's coming out, one of the many good things that's coming out of a crisis, and make it into the lexicon of tomorrow.
That is so true. I think media does have so much power, and it should be able to do it mainstream. And I literally, now that you just mentioned, I'm just going back to all the magazines that I've seen, and then they would have 2 pages of an eco edit, which just seems funny. Yeah. So, coming back to fashion, this entire global crisis has led to a lot of international fashion weeks calling for cancellations for almost a year. And fashion weeks are the place where there's so much that happens, there's so much creativity, so much business, so much meet and greet. So, how do you think uh, the business of fashion is going to be affected?
I think it's going to be the most creative times for the fashion industry. You are absolutely right. We can't possibly be having that many shows, that many fashion weeks. Can you imagine the carbon footprint of Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, London Fashion Week? I mean, you name it. I think people are going to have ingenious ideas already. You know, there's Shanghai Fashion Week and Moscow Fashion Week. They went fully digital during COVID times. I think there are loads of fashion weeks that are going to change, not just fashion weeks, big fashion events, some of them sustainable events that happen all over the world. They're going to change. They've got to see if with the content that they have, how can you put it up digitally? Which doesn't mean that fashion shows that involve human beings won't exist. But I feel like we go back into the whole 1950s way of showing small collections in a small place, very salon-like, which is touch and feel. That augmented with digital.
So true. Digital is playing such a huge role right now in the way people are connecting with each other, in the way conversations are happening. There's definitely a lot to learn and improvise. Creative and exciting times ahead, indeed. You spoke about all the interesting models that are coming up now, be it thrifting, be it vintage, swapping.
Mhm.
If you had to give some really basic practical tips to our listeners with respect to how they can go on a fashion diet.
How to go on a fashion diet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shop. Don't shop. Don't shop. Don't shop for a while. It's a diet. It's not forever. It's just a cleanser, and we can do it. We are going to be online shopping more than ever before now. Okay?
Yeah.
Because the idea of going out to big crowded places is going to be something fearful for a long time. And so all our online sales are going to go up, and they're going to be profiteers in exponential levels. But as consumers, we've got to understand it comes at a cost. It comes at a huge cost. And so to all the online shoppers, buy less. There's there's no reason why we should not be in a fashion diet. And then, okay, you buy some, you're taking a break, and then you buy. When you buy, instead of throwing away anything, swap it. Swap it with your neighbors, swap it with your friends, swap it with your sister. But most importantly, please don't buy anything that is not going to decompose naturally. That's a choice that we can make by going into the company profile, figuring out what it's made of. There is no reason why we should be buying things that do not respect the environment. If there are two t-shirts that look as beautiful, white t-shirts that we all love to wear, one is made out of bamboo fabric and one is made out of polyester, make the right choice. So these are individual choices. And that's why I keep going back to Gandhi, 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 because this is about a revolution that is caused by personal choices and personal responsibility. No one holds on to your wallet except you. So let's at least understand the power of our own wallet. And let's not think that there's some invisible force that's controlling us. It is us individually who have the money to shop, who have the fingers to type in, log in, and make that online sale. So let's be cognizant of how we are consuming, what we are buying.
That's right. The easiest thing is to vote with your money. They are making things that we ask for, so let's just ask for the right things. And with that, we are almost towards the end of the episode, except there is something that I want to ask Bandana. This is with reference to another podcast that I was listening to, the one with Norma Jean.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned that a favorite staple in your wardrobe would be a coat tee. So if
Yes.
you had to, I've done my research, haven't I?
You have indeed.
So if you were to print a quote on your t-shirt right now, what would that be?
Yeah. It would be, it's a Sanskrit phrase, which I use a lot in my writings. It's called Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It means the universe is my family in Sanskrit.
I could just understand kutumb and interesting. Let's print you this t-shirt now.
I would love that.
Great. And my last question to you, Bandana. So this is more holistic, okay? So we often attach sustainability, to a product or a lifestyle. But I truly feel that sustainability is, in everything, in our relationships, in culture, in business, politics, principles, environment, everything, literally. So, given the current situation of our planet, what advice would you give to, say, your younger self, maybe 15, 20 years younger?
I wish I had been a sustainability activist at a younger age. I wish I had understood the power of my own voice, the power of individual will. And I'm not talking about pomposity, I'm not vain, but just knowing that my own little voice would make a difference from really early on. I didn't have to wait this long. I would have loved to be a champion of sustainability from the age of 10, if I were to go back in time.
That sounds beautiful. Thank you so much, Vandana, for all your time. And this was great. This was amazing. I couldn't have thought of a better opening episode. Any closing thoughts for me, for our listeners?
I think after COVID-19, we are going to be better human beings. We are going to wish everyone else what we wish for ourselves. That is humanity, love, kindness, compassion. I hope we can all look at trees and feel the bounty of life. I hope we can look at a full moon and see the magic of the cosmos. I hope you can look at your neighbor and see he bleeds the way you bleed. These are just basic things we forgot while we were running and chasing. Now it's okay. It's okay to breathe out. Whatever discomfort that we have, all of us are going through it. It's okay. Just dial down, introspect. This could not be a better time for us to reemerge as better human beings.
Hey, it's great to see you stick around till the end. I hope you enjoyed this episode and will come back for more. Please do share, subscribe, or whatever that you typically do to our podcast, because we are going to need some love and support. See you next time.